Okay, the scale, the whole game and the scripts are designed to work on this 1 unit game, right? Where where the hero definitely has to be a 1-by-1 thing. All the other stuff could be multiples of that, but the hero needs to be a 1-by-1 thing. And the movement script is quantized to take 1 unit steps. So that he moves 1 unit left, 1 unit right. Right? If I hit play and watch this, if we look at his position, or its position, there's really no reason to this thing. We move this way. X is now 1, move up. Y is now -2, right? You see it in between, but the starting position should be integers. Everybody write that down, right? So you don't want your hero to start, off, where it's something like this. That's going to cause problems. And so your starting position should be some sort of integer position. So mine is at 0, -3. Right? Everybody understand what I mean by integers? No decimal points in the transform position for the starting point of the hero. The obstacles and enemies are kind of designed to take up some multiple of those units. Let's say 1-by-1 by default. They also need to be on the grid, right? So that their positions are not some sort of float value, right? Float means decimal point. And in this case, they're just 1-by-1 rocks. If you're using a circle collider on them, it's okay to shrink the size of the collider so that it's slightly smaller, but I would not make it larger than the unit, right? So if it's a radius like this, like watch what happens. If this, let's do this way. I'll turn this on. I should be able to adjust this during the game. All right, yeah, turn this one off. Because the rays that are being cast 1 unit over. Okay, so in that way, it's not the laser beam metaphor breaks down, and that you can't like shoot a laser beam just, think of it more of like a yardstick maybe that shoots out, right? Where it ends at some point. That's why it allows you to still move in that direction when you're more than 1 unit away. And so here, it's shooting it, and it's seeing did it hit it within this 1 unit, and it did, and so now I'm not able to move left. But if I were to change the size of the collider somehow to where this was like that, I can't move left from here because the size of the collider has been changed, right? And now I'm shooting that laser beam and it's contacting, and so now I can't move this way because of the incorrectly sized collider. Everybody with me there? So this, again, slightly smaller. In this case, it's 1 unit. The radius, what is the measurement of the radius in the circle? No, that's pi. What? It's from the middle to the edge, right? And so the entire distance across is 2r, right? So to make a 1 unit circle, it would have a 0.5 radius. And so 0.5 is just slightly smaller. It's a 0.9 width circle, right? That one can be confusing. It's not diameter. Diameter is the whole way across, 2r. This is just 0.45. If you have sprites that are not square, like this crocodile, you resize it based on the height of the sprite. Everybody with me there? Not the width, right? So in this case, it's 1,000 by 500, and I've made this 500, right? So that it becomes a 2 unit by 1 unit enemy. So here, make sure you use the height, not the width, to control the unit size. When you're dealing with the animated one, so this one, all the animation was done in Unity. So there's no PNG sequence, right? Which one does have PNG? The bird. And so in the bird enemy, here we go. We made the bird the right size, 500 by 500, so 500, that's easy. But you need to do that for all of the ones in the image sequence, the entire thing, not just one. All of them need to be resized. So you can do that all at the same time. You can shift click and then grab all of the frames in my animation, and I could change the pixels per unit here, and all the birds would look, wrong, way too big. But then I could go back and apply this, and now they're good. Right, so you can change them all just with one edit. Everybody with me there? So how do you know? You want to be able to see the grid, and you want to be able to make sure that when you look at it, that when you press the left button, it looks like your character is taken one step over. So we should see this increase by 1 in the X, or decrease if we go left. And he only takes up 1 space. Yeah, so I can't go up because this I didn't correct this back. So let's go back to this rock. This should be 0.45. There we go. So now if I come back here, now I can go up. I don't have the collide script turned on, which is why the enemies are just going through. Is this making sense here? Right? It will not work well unless you think about the grid setups, right? The starting points of everything should be grid integers, and the colliders should be, if anything, slightly smaller than the actual size, not slightly larger, right? You see why, if this gets off the grid, right, let's put it back at like 0.45, and I'll just move it like there. Now, this gets weird because it's shooting this, it's still in there, so it's not going to let me go that way. But if I shoot it this way here, this is further away than that is visually, and so then I end up with this weird overlapping. If this is too big, you could end up with what was happening with some of you guys where things get stuck inside, right? And then here, like I can't move this even though it looks like it's too far. So it's a combination here. You need to make sure that it's on the grid and it's the right size in order for this to, work correctly.
So it needs to be like on the lines, not in the boxes.
If everything just has integer locations, that solves the problem. And then when you move things around, hold down Control. and that'll keep it where you want it. Now remember, you have to get it right before the control thing works, because control will quantize from the starting point, right? So if this was displaced, and now I hold down control, you see it's now just displacing it by multiples of 1, but the multiples of 1 are displaced by 0.639 or whatever it is, right? So first, dial it in, then move around with control, and you know that you'll be right. And if you look at my enemies, the Crocs here, that's the one I just copied. We want these to also be on the grid. So let's get mine cleaned up. How would I do this? So this should be 5. Oh, so here, if the game is, depending which way you're going, right? So if we're going up to down, down, up, things need to be perfectly spaced on the Y. If we're going left to right, things need to be perfectly spaced on the X, right? It's a game of lanes, right? And you need to things need to stay in their lane. And the lanes need to be equidistant in order for that to work. So for instance here, this is at 0, this should be at 1, this one should be at 2, this bird is at 2, this car is at 1, this bird is at 0, this bird is at 0, there we go. That way, when I move forward, I won't end up with a situation where I'm in between lanes. That way I know I'm safe there, but then I'll be able to move to the next spot there. Everybody with me? Okay, is this making sense? So first thing, if you haven't done this already, double check that all of your sprites are imported correctly and that you've resized them in the asset correctly. That way, in the game, the scale of everything should be 1. I would write that down. Everything in the game, the scale should be 1. We can play with that later, right? You could make a bigger rock. If we made like, as long as it's an even multiple, that will work. Probably a square collider, not a circle for this one, which is why we're able to like move into that. So get the pixel aspect ratio correct, the pixel import, then make sure that everything is at 1, and then whichever direction your game is progressing in, everything should be in a lane, meaning that it's at a multiple thereof. Let's bring this down.